Hey guys, how are you all? I hope you are doing well. Just had like a little dance session. I'm feeling good to go. It's Saturday, so I have plenty of time to film for you guys. Which always makes me really happy. I hate like rushing to put up content, so super happy I could carve out a little bit of time this weekend to film this video. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Sadly, the package took a little bit longer than I thought it would to come, but I mean, considering what's going on in the world, I feel like we all need to be a little bit more understanding of mail and remember that there was a time when 2-day shipping wasn't really a thing. So I really don't feel like it's the biggest deal in the world if you have to wait a couple weeks to get some cosmetics. But we are talking today about the Range Beauty Foundation. I've been really curious about this, and they have a really incredible shade range. And they're a smaller company, so I believe they're only carried on their site in one other location, which I will have linked down below. But because of that, I obviously haven't had a chance to go and try their foundation out in person. So I wanted to order some samples to kind of figure out the right color. And if you guys saw my makeup declutter video from a few months ago, I do not need more foundation. So in my head, I justified this purchase by just getting the samples to start with. They're only $2, and then eventually when I start finishing more products up, especially more complexion products, which take me forever to go through, I'm gonna purchase this as my next foundation if I like it. So I bought 2 samples. I bought the shade Paloma and the shade Coconut Milk. Those are the 2 lightest shades in the range. This foundation is $21 and there are 21 shades. So really affordable price, really great shade range. So kind of like best of both worlds, which piqued my interest. And then the foundation itself, the formula piqued my interest because it's supposed to be a hydrating formula, but it's also supposed to be great if you have oily skin. I definitely have an oily T-zone, chin, and sort of areas on my cheeks. So that's something that I struggle with, but because the other parts of my face are drier, I can't do super heavy matte foundations. I'm going to show you guys the samples really quick. So they come in this little plastic container. Like I mentioned, they are $2 each. I have to be honest, I would have rather paid like $5 to get a little bit more. I was almost nervous like starting this review because I was like, do I even have enough product here to do a full review of this? And obviously this is going to be a first impressions because I can really probably only use these once or twice and then I'll be done. However, I will say I didn't even really want to swatch them to waste any product, but I swatched them and I needed very little product to get an effective swatch. So I'm wondering if this is actually plenty to sort of try out if you're just a normal consumer, not someone who's reviewing it. I would have loved to pay a little bit more for a little bit more product just for my personal use and how I like to test out products. So as I mentioned, I have the shade Paloma, which is described as fair/neutral undertones. And then I also have the shade Coconut Milk, which is fair/cool undertones. I mentioned this again, but there are 21 shades. They have a beautiful shade range and a really inspiring shade range for a conscious beauty brand. I think there's a huge push to have like 40 shades, but I feel like Range Beauty does a great job of showing that even with a 20 shade range brand, which is already like a lot for clean beauty, but just in general, a 20 shade range brand is plenty to have an inclusive range. And I think that translates to even smaller ranges as well. You can have a 10 shade range that's also inclusive. So I did go ahead and swatch them, and I have the swatches now still on my hand because I wanted to see what the finish was when they're dry. I will say that they do oxidize a little bit as you leave them on your skin. Personally, for me, I kind of think I'm going to be a blend of the 2 shades, but because this is a very affordable foundation, $21 for 1 fluid ounce of foundation, I feel like I wouldn't mind actually buying 2 shades and kind of customizing my color. But I think I'm definitely closer to Paloma, which again is the lightest shade in the range. They definitely dry down to a matte finish, which makes me a little bit nervous to see how that's going to work on drier areas of my face. But for summer, I feel like it's really important to find bases that will last in heat, and this foundation does have claims to be sweat proof. And you can kind of see when I rub this now that it's completely dry, it doesn't budge. So I think that's pretty impressive. Already off to a great start, but I also can see that, especially where I swatched, where obviously I didn't take the time to blend it in, there is like a slightly thicker outer rim of a different, almost like a discolored foundation, and I think that's because it's patchy and uneven. So I can tell that this is a foundation you need to be careful when you're blending. Take the time to blend it in. But I'm really excited to try this out. So why don't we get started? I'm just gonna tuck my hair behind my ears today, and I think I'm gonna do this and then a really quick summery look with some bronzer, and I think I'm gonna do a red lip just because it's fun, and I haven't really worn a lot of foundation, so I feel like fancy right now putting on a full face of foundation. I do have moisturizer on my face right now. It's been sinking in for probably about a half hour, so my skin is prepped. Just checking again to see. So this does say it's a sheer to medium coverage foundation. Based on what I see with the swatches, it feels pretty full coverage to me, but we'll see when I'm actually blending it out. And it suggests that if you want a light coverage to use your fingers, and if you want a more medium coverage to use a sponge or a brush. All my brushes are very dirty, so we're gonna use a sponge, which is perfectly clean, which is great. I might do kind of a mix of the colors, so I might use coconut milk as sort of like the deeper tone for like kind of a bronzier look around my chin, a little contouring, and then in the center of my face, I'm going to use Paloma to highlight those features, and that way hopefully I can get a couple of uses out of these samples. I'm just going to dot it on. The texture is actually very interesting. It's almost mousse-like. It's very thick. You can see that it doesn't run at all, so it's sort of like stuck in the pan that way. Definitely sheer coverage when you're using your fingers. So I'm just sort of lightly tapping this in. I don't tend to take a lot of foundation over my nose. It's not an area that I really need to cover a lot on, and I also think it keeps foundation looking a bit more natural. So what I'll do is kind of blend it up the sides of my nose so that there's not like a harsh line between where my foundation starts and stops, but then I don't need to take it over my nose. And with whatever's left over my finger, I can just kind of like put a really, really light layer on so that the colors blend together. That was a really tiny bit, and I do feel like with my fingers it went pretty far. I'm going to do my chin where I have a lot more pigmentation and kind of around my mouth area with a sponge. So again, I'm just dotting on. I'm kind of still learning how much to put on, but I'm starting with a very small amount. And then I'm going to take the sponge, blend it in. I don't know if I noticed a huge difference in the application technique. For me, I usually think reverse. Like when I want more coverage, I use my fingers. When I want less coverage, I use a sponge because I feel like it eats most of the foundation. Put a little bit more on. Might not be using enough. Definitely very weightless on the skin. I can feel a difference in terms of this area where it's already dried and kind of mattified versus this area where it's still dewy to the touch. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more of this shade on my forehead. I actually think that once this is blended in, this is closer to my shade than even if I mix the two colors. It's definitely giving really beautiful coverage. Coverage-wise, with this foundation, I'm getting a lot of coverage. I am seeing it stick a little bit to some dry areas that I have underneath my eyes. I think I'm just like eating my words with the sample comment, like this isn't enough. I literally used the tiniest amount, and I feel like this is an amount of foundation that I would go out with. Like I feel perfectly comfortable in this amount. It covered all the areas that I need coverage from, and like I said, I used the tiniest amount. It is definitely matte though. I like some more shine to my skin, so I'm gonna have to go in with, you know, like a highlighter to sort of get that. It's not a velvety finish. I really think it's a true matte finish. It's also like not moving, which is kind of interesting. I'm curious if it's going to break up during the day, and maybe I'll write in the comments sort of final thoughts if I end up wearing it all day. Okay, I'm going to take the shade Coconut Milk. This is the slightly deeper tone for me. I'm going to go in and just do some like light contouring with it, so applying it kind of to this area of my face. And again, I am making sure it's really blended because I did see some separation on the swatches when I had like an uneven amount of it. This might be the first truly matte clean beauty foundation that I've ever found. I'm gonna go back in with Paloma since I'm just testing this out for the first time. Like I said, this is a bit of like a trial, you know, what can I get away with, what looks good. And I'm gonna add a little bit more in the center of my face. See how it builds. And I'm gonna apply it almost like a concealer, so in that kind of like triangle underneath my eyes. Based on how this is setting, I think the claims about the staying power is going to be very true. I could definitely see this being sweat proof. It is clinging to a dry area that I have, but like I mentioned, it is a more matte foundation, so that doesn't shock me. I'll just have to remember to put on like a nice layer of moisturizer before wearing this. Okay, it's not building super well for me, unfortunately. kind of wish I didn't add more there because I'm starting to see it break up a little bit. I'll zoom you guys in so you can see. But the other parts of my face where I didn't build it up a lot look great. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see, but really where I'm seeing the kind of breaking apart of the foundation is where I added that additional layer. I'm just seeing it separate a little bit on my skin. That could mean that I need a little bit more moisturizer here. Maybe that would have helped. A primer could also help with something like that, just to even my skin underneath it. But if you look at places like my forehead, my chin even, the sides of my cheeks here, it looks very natural. It is matte, but it looks very natural and I'm not getting that breaking apart. So I think I prefer the look of like the lighter end of the coverage spectrum with this foundation, but I am impressed with how well it's setting. It feels like dry to the touch, and I don't mean like dry skin, I just mean like the foundation feels dry, which for me is a little bit of a foreign experience because I usually go for velvet to glowy foundations, and they don't always feel like completely set. They still have a little bit of tackiness to them, but this is completely dry. So if you have oily skin, I think this would be incredible. And certainly I am loving the way my forehead looks. It is not shiny, which is a rare occurrence. So for me, what this is telling me is that if you have hated cream foundations, if you do not like that glow that you get and you just want something where it looks like skin but a more matte version of it, this is your foundation. All right, I'm gonna zoom you guys out and finish up the rest of my face. So for the rest of my face, I think we're just gonna do kind of a summery look. I definitely think I could have gotten away with more cream products on my face, but I was thinking of just kind of doing like a pretty summery, just a little bit of bronzer on my cheeks, some fake freckles, and a red lip. So I'm just gonna go through that quickly with you guys. I'm gonna be applying a little bit of my Honest Beauty brow pencil just to shape my brows, make them a little bit more defined. Okay, some brow gel. Like I mentioned, we're keeping this simple, so we're just going to do a little bit of bronzer. This is one of my favorites, the Well People Bio-Based Baked Bronzer, and kind of doubles as a blush because there is a slight red undertone, or like, I want to say like terracotta. It's not orange because I don't think anyone looks great with the orangey bronzer. I am noticing that this product, which is a powder product, is clinging a little bit to this base, but I also think it's helping a little bit with pigment. I always take it across the bridge of my nose, take a little on my chin, and then I feel like I've just been sitting out in the sun. I'm going to draw a couple of freckles with just an eyeliner. I did this last week and it was so funny. People from my family thought they were real freckles, so they called me to tell me, they were like, I never knew you had so many freckles. I was like, oh no, just a lot of pimples that I was trying to cover up. But I do think freckles are fun and very summery. And one of my sisters actually has a lot of beautiful natural freckles. I know they're looking kind of severe right now, but I'll show you guys what I do. And I've always been jealous of them. So pretty. So I just kind of like dot them across my nose and across my cheek. And this is a really blendable eye pencil, so you don't really have to worry about it setting. And you can either take your finger and kind of dab over it, but since I already have this handy, just kind of like go over them and make them a little bit more faint. It's kind of hard to see because I'm sitting in direct sunlight, but I have a nice little dusting of freckles over my nose. I'm actually not going to do any mascara today because I've been using the Westman Atelier mascara, and in the heat I've noticed that it starts to flake more for me. And I actually get kind of like a stingy sensation if it gets flaky in my eyes. So I'm not wearing any mascara today, but I did curl my lashes. And then I'm going to be trying out this new Clove & Hallow Fiesta Lip Velvet. They sent this to me. You guys know I have their lip velvet in Napa that I love, and they were kind enough to send this one to me, and I love red lips, so. I have to go out of focus for a second and finish this. I just realized I'm filming this on summer solstice, so this is definitely why I've been feeling like it's time for a summery look. Did I just find my new favorite lip product of the moment? You guys, that color, that is beautiful. I am looking a little washed out now though, so I'm going to add a little bit more bronzer. And then because you guys know I don't like a super matte base. I want a little bit more glow to my skin. I'm going to be using the Honest Beauty Magic Balm, which I've been using nonstop, and I'm just going to place that on the high points of my cheek. Just adds perfect amount of glow back in. Okay, so some wrap-up thoughts about this foundation. Okay, one, like I said, take back my word about this being a small sample. You need a tiny bit of this foundation to get a very effective amount of coverage. Certainly enough coverage that I am comfortable with. I personally had a little bit of trouble building it up. Again, I do suffer from combination skin. I don't have normal skin and I don't have purely oily skin or purely dry skin. I have areas of my face that need different attention. So I think if you err on the oilier side or the more normal side, you'll probably be able to build this up. But if you have dry patches like me, then you can use this in a very different way. If you still want a matte foundation, you just apply this lightly with your fingers or a sponge or a brush, and then you'll be able to get lighter coverage but still very effective coverage in the areas that you need it. This definitely sets down to a matte finish, and it truly sets. You can feel it on your skin. It doesn't have any glide to it. It is a dry sensation on your skin. Powder products for me clung to it a little bit more, so the bronzer I had to be careful with how much I applied and then really worked it into my skin to make sure I didn't get any really concentrated areas and it was more of a natural finish. But it also made the pigment of my bronzer stand out more, which meant I needed to use less product. So that's just like a little bit of a learning curve going into it. You might not need as much of your powder products as you would with other bases. Since I like a velvety finish, adding a highlight for me is kind of essential with a foundation like this. It makes me feel like I have more natural skin because I do tend to get oily on my cheek. So for me, that just reads truer than having a perfectly matte face. But this cream product applied beautifully, and I'm definitely next time going to try applying cream cheek products in terms of blushes and bronzers to see if I like that better than the powder finish. Overall, I'm super impressed with this foundation. Also, from a price point, $21 is a great price for a foundation like this. I preferred blending it in with a sponge rather than my fingers. I just found it was easier and I didn't notice a huge difference between those two application points. I felt like the finish looked pretty similar, but I am curious to try it with a brush. I'll try it with a brush next time and see how I like it. I'm certainly happy to have something that feels like it's going to be long wearing in the summer because it's getting hot and I need something that's not going to slide off my face. So hopefully that is this. I'm going to keep trying it out, keep testing it out, but those were sort of my first impressions. If I can answer any other questions, let me know. Again, you can see the swatches on my hand. I'm rubbing them and they're not coming off. So that's really just so impressive. Also love this lip. I know this review isn't about that, but man. Alright you guys, I hope that was helpful for anyone who's been curious about Range Beauty. I'm looking forward to trying more of their products. I've also heard really great things about their powder products, and so next time I need a setting powder, I'm gonna dabble and do some more research and potentially pick one up as well. But yeah, really impressed with their foundation so far. I also want to mention if you do get samples, they will send you $5 off a full size, so that's a great deal. Perhaps they could offer a second sample size if you want to pay a little bit more for a little bit more product, since these aren't available everywhere yet and it can be tricky to figure out your shade. It feels worth it to me to pay $5 for something a little bit bigger than this that feels more substantial and you can try a lot of different times. Although I am finding, like I've mentioned, that you get a lot of use out of such a small amount of this product that perhaps this is also a fine size too. Again, like I mentioned, if you have questions, let me know down in the comments. Happy to answer them. Super happy I got to try this foundation out. I'm going to continue trying it with different products and application techniques. And I will keep you guys posted. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all doing well. Happy official summer. Let me know what products are on your wish list these days. Let me know what you've been loving down in the comments below. And I'll look forward to hearing from you guys. So have a wonderful rest of your day or night or whenever you're watching this. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.